you can always go back and listen at Fastlane Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts, including Facebook Live and YouTube, because, oh, please tell me the sound effects are not messing up right now.
Let me hop on it and I can get it fixed. We had issues with the server this morning.
My man Trey helping us. So, anyway, Fastlane Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts. Trey, spot on with it. I wish this was actually happening when JJ was in today, but JJ is out until next week so that the new guy, JJ, can learn about all of these challenges and adversity. We'll get to that later. But it's this. Matt Klein left New Covenant to coach LCA after he guided the Griffins to a state championship. And the year before, they came up just short. He stuck around. I don't know if the LCA job would have opened up. I think the prior coach just retired, and so it is what it is. But Matt Klein probably could have left for somewhere in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and instead went back to New Covenant for another year, got them over the hump to win a state championship, and then he left on top. He left a program he had built and had gotten a lot of success with, not because he didn't think he could succeed. In fact, he stuck around after losing the state title game to prove he could succeed. There was no beep in that. We were just testing it out.
It works.
It does. Meanwhile, his guy, because Matt is a Michigan Wolverine fan, to him, not me, go blue, Matt Klein, his coach, Dusty May, left after winning a national championship, height of college basketball, to go to the NBA's Dallas Mavericks. But there are a couple of differences, and that's kind of where the similarities end. Both Michigan men, Matt Klein and Dusty May, both leaving programs that they guided to a championship for what they would perceive to be uniquely better opportunity. I think it's reasonable to say we're being diplomatic, but truthful here in the fast lane. And I would say that I went to New Covenant back in the day, knowing what I know about that. In LCA, I think LCA is equipped with more resources and more opportunities. Just the nature of their conference, being in the Seminole District, as great of a conference as it is, to compete at a higher level and to compete at a broader level for championships. New Covenant's on the lower end of the private schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia that are competing for state titles. It still is hard work, but you're not going up against a lot of the powerhouses that are putting out these players that you would see signing Division I scholarships. Think schools in the Washington, D.C. area. So we wanted to contextualize that. But Matt Klein left because it was a legitimately better opportunity. I don't think Dusty May just left Michigan because the Dallas Mavericks are a better opportunity. Here's a novel concept. Masai Ujiri, who is the general manager, am I getting the title correct, Trey, for the Dallas Mavericks?
I think he's the president of basketball operations now. Because he's like, he got an ownership stake or something like that.
Yes. Well, he is, how do we say this? Very hands-on in terms of how he runs the Dallas Mavericks. And NBA coaches have a shorter shelf life in terms of how quickly they are fired than college basketball coaches. See the one-year contract that whoever the Portland Trailblazers' new coach is getting.
Yeah, his official title is team president. He's president of basketball operations and an alternate governor. So that's his title.
By the way, quick detour for a moment here in the fast lane.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
I just detest the term governor. They are owners. And I know it changed because of back in the 2000 era when people were, understandably in a lot of cases, up in arms about, social justice and racial injustice things that were happening. But this was overboard. They're owners. Like they don't own the players. By the way, they pay the players multiples of millions of dollars. Look at free agency numbers that are getting kicked around. More on this in the Fast Five at 5-ish with the NBA draft tonight. VTR in Sports App at 93.3 FM. They don't own the players. They pay the players handsomely. They own the franchise name and its business rights. But the NBA, being a wimpier league than others, caved in and said we should not call them owners. We should call them governors. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And this is one of the things where you get on your high horse, and I just think it's dumb you're getting on your high horse because who really cares what they call them? They call them governors. I mean, who cares? They're billionaires. I think they do not care. Really? Like you're complaining about this?
Trey, let me vent in the fast lane.
I understand that.
Never let your correctness get in the way of my need to get emotional.
I'm just pointing out that this is one of those things, one of those times where you're saying something and
all right, I am not going
to complain about it, but again, there are a couple of sports arguments that people get into where it's I don't want to say the stick to sports people, but some things are just why are you even arguing in sports? And then this is not to do with the stick to sports people. or politics, because I don't think the owner governor thing is. But this is definitely one where it's like, who cares?
All right, Trey, my wife might be listening, by the way, on her way home from Brownstone Properties, great partner of ours here in the Fast Lane and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. So if she is, shout out to her. She's going to roll her eyes and possibly get a chuckle out of this next
Is she
comment.
your governor?
I would say she's the owner of the house. Maybe not in title, but in power she is.
My joint governor it's her birthday today, so happy birthday to Storm Durham.
Yes,
or
well,
Storm Lyle. Crap.
Oh, boy.
I'm not getting in trouble.
Boy, let's
It's
turn
only
your
been 2
microphone
weeks.
off before it goes south. Trey,
She might not be listening right now, so I think I'm okay.
Trey, shout out to my dad, by the way, but I am not going to use my dad's ridiculous phrase of "you might be right," because my dad just can't bring himself to say you are right and I am wrong. I will say this: you are correct. Is it really a big deal? It is merely the fact that it just gets under my skin, and shouts to Family Guy on this one. It grinds my gears. The terminology governor in the NBA, but
after Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, let's get back on the road in the fast lane.
All right, back on the road in the fast lane. The departure of Matt Klein from New Covenant to LCA, I think you can reasonably say it was because it was a legitimately awesome opportunity at LCA. New Covenant was great. He did a lot of good things with it. Still in a strong place for basketball, but LCA, objectively speaking, we don't get, neither one of them are partners with us in the fast lane. I can say there are more opportunities at LCA than at New Covenant. And Matt Klein did everything he could, literally winning a championship for New Covenant. Dusty May at Michigan got to the mountaintop. But I don't think his leaving Michigan is as much to do with the fact that he wants just the challenge of the NBA as it is he wants to get out of the rat race of college athletics. Shout out to our friends from the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, Gary Parrish from M-Town, Memphis, Tennessee, and Matt Norlander, because they documented this very well on a couple of episodes they had over the last 24 hours. And it's about the fact that you win the national championship, and rather than celebrating and enjoying with your team and with your family, you're hopping on Zoom calls or whatever video conference platform you use because you have to retain players, speak with their agents, deal with the headaches of that, because the transfer portal and the NCAA's infinite wisdom opens up literally the next day after the college basketball season ends because of the, I'll use air quotes for this, academic calendar. We all know that's the priority when you're talking revenue generating sports. And because of all that, you just sit there and go, why do I want to deal with this when I can at least go to the NBA, probably get paid a lot more money? If I flame out, I can always go back to college. I'll be a hot commodity. I did great things at FAU, even though their athletic director is now at Virginia Tech. Maybe he gets fired and goes to Virginia Tech. One can dream, at least, that Dusty May that happens to him. But you can always do that. He can always get fired in the NBA in a year or two, and maybe Mike Young retires and he goes to follow Brian White, the new athletic director at Virginia Tech, and goes to Blacksburg. Let's just dream for a second. But you're leaving not because you just sense a great, awesome opportunity, which maybe there's part of that with Cooper Flagg and able to coach him with the Dallas Mavericks. But it's as much as anything to get away from where we are in college sports. And that's where I don't believe Dusty May is the only coach. Who knows what other coaches will do this? We've seen other coaches leave for nothing. Think Jay Wright at Villanova. Think Tony Bennett, obviously, at Virginia, the high-profile case in our backyard. Nick Saban, even the greatest college football coach of all time, literally changed how the game operates, including the amount of resources, financial, that have been kicked into the sport. Like, they all left for nothing because of the way the game is. So now somebody's leaving because it's a better opportunity and the game really is just as chaotic. That's where I don't think anybody should pretend to be surprised.
Yeah, but there's a part of this argument that no one's talking about. Do you know who the other finalist was for that job? And if he said yes, would have got it over Dusty May?
Yes, and I don't believe it precludes him from ever leaving Duke, John Shire, the other finalist, to go to the NBA.
I'm just saying.
I think if he gets Duke to the mountaintop,
he has more natural ties to Duke. Which, shout out to Duke. They posted an old photo of John Shire wearing a Duke shirt. And then Maryland basketball.
Was that when he played at Duke?
No, like as a kid. And then Maryland quote tweeted it and said, since we're doing Throwback Thursday, and they did a video of a guy dunking on, I can't remember the exact Maryland player, but a Maryland player dunking on John Shire. And just chef's kiss because like that is an underrated, really good basketball rivalry, especially the early 2000s. Like when Maryland won the national championship and like they were really good in the ACC. And obviously JJ Redick was kind of the headliner of that rivalry. But anyways, I don't know if this is a full indictment on the NBA, whereas or the of college basketball, as everyone says that it's ought to be. I just think like Dusty May is a guy who wants to accomplish things, and he already accomplished everything in college basketball.
But
I mean,
we're
2 Final Fours and a national championship. Like, what else can he do?
I get that. Now you can always go back. You can always build it over a longer period of time. But the reality is, you're building a new team literally every single year with your roster. There's nothing contractually in place keeping these players to their university because nobody wants to call them employees. So we can't collectively bargain because we don't want to go down that road. Not we. We're talking the NCAA here. And because of that, that's the reality of it, which is why I wouldn't, as much as John Shire has ties to Duke, it wouldn't shock me if he left Duke for the NBA. It wouldn't shock me really if anybody left a college program for a professional program if the opportunity arises, given the chaotic nature, particularly in college football and college basketball, of why you would leave. And if you go to the highest, well, let's call it not instead of the pros, they're all pros, to the more organized professional league, you can always drop back down and coach at the less organized professional league, cough college, cough, and you can still have that opportunity awaiting at some point in time. And I don't blame John Shire for not leaving now. If I'm him, I would rather lead Duke to a championship, go to the NBA, you drop back down, you'd always have a chance to go back to Duke. I mean, he's already had a really successful tenure there, getting him to the Final Four, getting them to a couple of other Elite Eights outside of that. He's had a really good run at Duke in a short period of time. I think if you're Shire, you'd love to get to the mountaintop. And you can go to the NBA and you can drop back down. I mean, heck, Billy Donovan might do it again. Maybe he goes to Michigan. Maybe he holds off a year and just see what opens up next year. If I'm him, I'd probably do the latter because Michigan might open up if Mike Boynton doesn't end up becoming the successful interim coach. I think they'll probably lift that tag. But
War Manual issued a statement, said head coach in an interim capacity. So it might be a lot like Ron Sanchez at UVA.
Yes, but very much so. So you've got all those nuggets that tie all this in, which is my bigger point is Dusty May leaving is the latest example of a coach fleeing college sports for something, retirement, professional ranks, whatever, to get out of the chaotic landscape, knowing that if you ever got the itch, you can always just go back and it's a year-to-year business and league anyway, versus when Matt Klein left, it's building relationships, which he did very well at New Covenant. He left for LCA to build relationships, but he left New Covenant in a pretty good spot, and now he gets to go to LCA, and they haven't gotten over the hump. They made it to the state semifinals this past year before losing to runner-up, not Petersburg, the team, Lake Taylor, who lost to Petersburg. But that's where the differences are. So similarities on the surface, but not overall. Trey.
Also, I would add with Dusty May, like, I guess like a really good comparison could be Matt Rule. Like, Matt Rule was like this, ironically, Midwest guy, help transform an American school to unprecedented heights. Obviously, I know FAU was in the CUSA then, but Temple's an American school, FAU an American school. Then went to a power school and took them to a conference championship. Obviously, he went to a national championship, but and then flamed out in the NFL and then went right back to a big time job in college football. Like, now I think Dusty May is going to do great because he has a great young player and a really good GM. But like, let's just say, I don't know, it doesn't work out in Indiana, and he was a former ball boy at Indiana. Like, you don't think that would be the person they call at the top of their list? Like,
they'll have their options because Michigan.
But the coach that is just hired at Indiana has only been there 1 year, so I'm just picking. I just picked a random Big Ten school.
Big Ten money though, it's enticing enough to keep people.
You're right.
Paying
He
attention.
can go back.
Essentially, that's the premise of it. Meanwhile, speaking of the NCAA, things that I will not be waiting on. Just wake me up when. That's the theme in.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m. ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
The NCAA, they have adopted a 5-year eligibility plan. The plan is to allow 5 seasons over a 5-year period that begins with their full-time enrollment or the academic year following their 19th birthday. My only reaction to this is, am I cynical about this, Trey? Just wake me up after the court cases for this one. Like, that's where we are on something like this. I wish this provided more uniformity, but if we're not going to collectively bargain, they're going to get challenged. They're going to get challenged in state-friendly courts. Think Trinidad Chambliss with Ole Miss as one example of them. Brendan Sorsby, Texas Tech is another, actually. More on that in a moment. And because of that, this is just not going to go anywhere. Inevitably, outside of the Brendan Sorsby situation, pretty much everything else will get challenged, and nobody has a problem with it being challenged, even as chaotic and disjointed as it seems to be. Speaking of Brendan Sorsby,
Number 4.
Brendan Sorsby will not be drafted in the NFL supplemental draft because the NCAA has essentially, is this a reasonable term,
The
Trey?
NFL, not
The NFL, not the NCAA. The NFL has essentially blacklisted him. Is that too harsh of a statement to describe it?
I would say they gave him a year. Like, I think pretty much they're like,
A de facto 1-year suspension?
Yeah, they were going to do that anyways. So they're like, we're not going to let you in.
A letter was sent to the teams earlier today informing them of this decision. The league, this according to the tweet from Adam Schefter, who works for the NFL/ESPN, they have merged, or at least have ownership stakes in each other. Quote, the league continues to try to show it has little tolerance for gambling issues, end quote. I mean, look, again, we just touched on it. 5 years to play 5 years in college sports as a new eligibility rule. Wake me up with the court ends. Fans are disjointed by that, but it's not like they're stopping to watch college basketball or college football. Those numbers continue to be very strong, including the great streaming we have of all of that on the BTRN Sports app. But when it comes to betting, that's the one where everyone is unified. And I know Brendan Sorsby and his legal team are going to try to contest this issue. It is a little bit different, though, in the NFL because, here's wait for it, they are collectively bargained. So the players' union and the ownership groups can both be on the same page when it comes to this. It's amazing what happens when you collectively bargain in sports world. In the real world, not a fan of it. In the sports world, it just makes things easier. And I know I normally detest that phrase, but when it comes to this one, it doesn't just make it easier, it makes it correct because everybody has a side. And if they don't like it, we don't jam up the courts, get in the way of competition. You can just say, go talk to your union or go talk to your ownership group, and you can get things resolved from that point forward. Meanwhile,
Number 3.
speaking of college sports, UVA hiring Luke Tobrin as their director of sports performance for men's basketball. He replaces Mike Curtis. I am not always a fan of going, quote, in the family, end quote. But Tobrin, I know he, quote, I'm going to use air quotes here, oversaw the Longwood strength and conditioning programs at Longwood University. I use air quotes because I may or may not have some inside info into this, that it really was in title only. He was focused on men's basketball. Other programs largely did their own thing. Now, from what I gather, maybe he was a little bit upset at that. Instead, he should be writing thank you notes, but that's my point aside. Luke Tobrin was essentially tied to Griff Aldrich at Longwood in role. Maybe not in title, but in the role he took on there. And therefore, even though Aldrich has left Virginia to go to Pepperdine University, there's clearly a tie-in with Aldrich and Ryan Odom. With anybody on the Odom and Aldrich staffs, this is the latest example of it. And for the strength and conditioning / sports performance areas, I actually think that makes sense. You want coaches to have people with whom they are comfortable and know how they operate because they have a prototype for how they want players to be developed to be able to accomplish the things that they set out to accomplish. Meanwhile,
Number 2.
tonight is the NBA draft on ESPN Radio, which means on the VTRN Sports app. First round tonight, second round is tomorrow night. Catch all of the coverage starting at, is it 7:30 tonight, Trey, on the VTRN Sports app at 93.3 FM? Yes, it is. I'm glad my guess was correct. Or my feeble memory, I should say. What will / should the Wizards do at number 1, Trey?
AJ Dybantsa. I just think I think when you're picking number 1, and you were right about 7:30. With AJ Dybantsa, you just I think while Darren Peterson might have, I think, the higher ceiling, I think Dybantsa has a big enough ceiling, fits the modern NBA in terms of size and ability. Peterson just has way too many red flags, where I don't trust the Wizards enough to make the right decision. So take AJ Dybantsa, get a big wing, and feel good about it.
I think you said it fairly well. The higher end player, if they reach their maximum potential, is probably Darren Peterson. But he could also fall crashing down to a much lower floor because of injury concerns, real or perceived, depending on how you title that. Look back to his time at Kansas. Among other red flags that are out there, availability is one of the greatest abilities.
Also, don't be surprised if Cam Boozer goes 2 over Peterson, because two factors. Jazz like a high. The Jazz, Danny Ainge, you don't know what Danny Ainge will do. And 2, his dad, and I know this is this is not a factor in it when it comes to the ages. I don't think entirely, because I trust, they have a history of building good basketball teams. Danny Ainge and his son Austin Ainge. Look at his time in Boston. But Carlos Boozer is a scout for the Utah Jazz. So
Great point, Trey. Thank you for that.
Number 1.
I'll let you make a point in a moment. The Bucks traded Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis to the Miami Heat for Tyler Hero, Kalel Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kasparis Shakachunas, whose name I butcher, but okay, and 3 first-round picks, including the 13th pick in the NBA draft tonight that you'll be able to hear on the VTRN Sports app. There's not a lot around Antetokounmpo and Portis and Bam Adebayo in Miami. I will throw this out there, and this is where you might take over, Trey. Inevitably, I've trusted that when Pat Riley has acquired superstars and there's not a lot around them, he has a game plan to get other players around them and understands how to leverage that in the correct manner. That is where I would say in Pat Riley, I trust, and you get the right players in place. In Eric Spoelstra, I trust to coach them up. Do I put them at the top of the East? I think the Knicks have earned that right based on what they have coming back last year. But are they near there? I think it's reasonable to say that once the roster is complete, you can like a lot about Miami.
Yeah, if they had a roll out in the court today with no Norm Powell, they probably won't keep. I wouldn't put them. I'd put them like 4th in the East, maybe 5th, depending on, because I'd probably have the Knicks, the Celtics, the Pistons, and the Pacers ahead of them, just how the roster is currently constructed. But all I will say is, as a Miami Heat fan, every time the Miami Heat have acquired a big star in the Pat Riley era, they have gone to the NBA Finals. Alonzo Mourning, Shaq, LeBron, Bosh, Butler, all win at least in the NBA Finals. Outside of Butler, won the NBA Finals.
Fair point. Meanwhile, many good points when we come back. Great year for Jefferson Forest Athletics. They were arguably one of the most consistently great programs in local sports throughout the area, from fall, winter, and spring. Their athletic director, Jeremy Sink, slated to make his debut in the fast lane next. Will he be scared of us? Will we be okay? Let's find out together next on the VTRN Sports app.
Celebrate 250 years of America with massive savings during the Liberty 250 savings event on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Right now, get an additional $250 fuel savings discount on all new and used vehicles. An additional $250 in fuel savings. Shop over 2,000 new and used vehicles in one location, including more than 1,000 quality pre-owned vehicles with most makes and models at the Used Car Superstore. Plus 12 new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Toyota, Subaru, Chevrolet, Buick, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Used cars starting at just $59.95. $59.95. And your trade is worth more. Shop local and save with straightforward pricing, exceptional service and selection, certified friendly staff, no games, no gimmicks, and more inventory arriving daily, plus flexible financing options for every budget. We've got the credit. The Sheeler Motor Mile delivers choices. The Liberty 250 savings event on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Example 2009 Chevrolet Impala, stock number KA260134B, plus tax tag title and $697 processing fee.
Lunchtime just got an upgrade. Stop by Macadoo for our $8.95 weekday special and grab a legendary sandwich at an unbeatable price. Choose from your favorite classics, the Coney Island, Betty Bob, Ragtime, or Stogie. Classic sandwiches packed with savory meats and flavors in between fresh bread. Make it a meal by pairing your sandwich with a sidekick, a warm cup of soup, or crispy chips. Great food, cozy vibes, and the best deal in town.
Time to share great food and fun. Just to be there, the only one. Just to be there at Market Dues.
We'll see you at the dues.
Hi, I'm Al Billingsley, a board member with CASA of Central Virginia. Children who have experienced abuse or neglect often enter foster care feeling scared, confused, and alone. That's where CASA volunteers step in. We stand behind these children to make sure that their voices are heard in court. CASA is looking for caring adults from our community to serve as volunteer advocates. And as a man, I can tell you we're especially in need more men to step up for these kids. If you're ready to make a difference, learn more at cvcasa.org.
Big transitions feel like big hurdles. That's why Central Virginia Counseling has 2 dynamic 6-week summer groups for rising 6th and 9th graders packed with essential life skills. Each week targets a new skill for success, tools like organization, time management, task initiation, anxiety reduction techniques, and skills for making friends and communicating well. Through peer connection and expert guidance, students will gain tools to feel capable, connected, and ready for day one. Visit us on Timberlake Road or Wigington Road in Lynchburg or at centralvirginiacounseling.com to learn more.
Guests are great, except unwanted guests. At Specialty Exterminating, we know the difference. Hi, I'm Sabrina Kennan with Specialty Exterminating. We help you keep unwanted pests out of your home. Now we can keep those reptiles away. Our new reptile repellent is the perfect add-on for your pest prevention service. It's pet and people safe, so it's perfect for any homeowner, especially pool owners and homes in wooded and rural areas. Call us so we can repel the reptiles. Specialty Exterminating, your pest prevention partner since 1979.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, to the Fast Lane.
I'm going to do the proverbial hat tip because I don't have one on. I don't generally wear one during the regular business day activities for the Fast Lane and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. But a proverbial hat tip for a friend of ours and mine personally, but also ours here in the show and at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast. A few months ago, he had a going back chat with Jeremy Sink, who is the athletic director for the Jefferson Forest Cavaliers, certainly discussing his role trying to help JF coaches be the best they can be, but also his journey from over in Daleville, Lord Botetourt, all the way over to Lynchburg Forest, technically, to be the athletic director at Jefferson Forest. So that's part of the inspiration, as well as seeing Jeremy Sink often when we do Jefferson Forest Cavalier football on our sister stations, 100.9 Lynchburg and 95.3 now in Bedford, Virginia. But we wanted to get a chance to actually speak with Jeremy Sink ourselves. We might steal a question or two from Bob Alvis. But first of all, Jeremy, welcome into the Fast Lane. Second of all, have you been able to exhale now that we've gotten through the spring sports period?
You know, Ed, I appreciate you having me on. And yes, we've had a moment to exhale when baseball finished up in the state semifinal. Unfortunately, came out on the wrong side of that one, but a really great game, one of the best high school baseball games I've seen. The very next day, the wife and I, my kid, and our kids, we hit the road to the beach, and we're down there. We just came back on Sunday. So back in the office this week and getting ready for next year. And I'd be remiss if I said that, you know, while I'm from Botetourt County, I went to James River High School. That's like the other school in the county on the other side. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I'm a James River grad, but a Botetourt County native. So
I like the shout out for your high school. I mean, that's kind of what it all is about, is school pride after all.
Great things come from James River High School and Botetourt County.
I think
including
Trey's
my wife.
Trey, very quick to get his bases covered here in the Fast Lane, which is
exactly. We got to take it where we can get it with the Knights in Buchanan.
Oh, indeed. Now, you mentioned going from the baseball state championship game. It was a great game, but unfortunately for Jefferson Forest, falling short on that stage. How do you make yourself available for the coaching staff, for the players, to remember a great season, but also know that that moment is a pretty emotionally vulnerable one coming off of such a disappointing result to a great season? And then you got to flip it all around and get ready to go to the beach with a wife and some kids who want daddy to be excited and ready to go for vacation time.
I'll tell you what, to fall short of that state semifinal game when we drew Atlee, after we had beat, Loudoun Valley here, a longtime coach in Wayne Todd that I coached against back and we're talking 20 years ago when I was in Northern Virginia. We knocked Loudoun Valley off. And then, we're on the road to Woodgrove for the spring jubilee, and we get Atlee. And, we'd heard a lot about them. They had a lot of D1 presence, a lot of guys who had committed to play at the next level. We saw 2 D1 arms, and as Coach G even said, we showed that we belong there. We got their attention, and it came down to the final half of an inning where we were on the wrong side of it by a 1-run game. So they went on to advance and play against Woodgrove, and Woodgrove actually beat them in the state championship by a score of, I think, 2-1 on a 1-run game. So the semifinal games were really, really tight. To know that we were that close, of course, it's disappointing, but as Coach G and his staff and the kids and to see them all rally around the team was pretty awesome. Not to mention also that softball went on a magical run on the road. They were the Road Warriors this year. Was the 4th seed coming out of Region 4D and advanced all the way to the state quarters and won 3 games on the road and knocked off a team in Amherst that was the Region 4D number 1 to advance. So the old saying of hard to be a team 3 times was definitely true in that one because they had beat us twice in the regular season, but we figured it out when it counted most. So
Jeremy Sinks, the athletic director for the Jefferson Forest Cavaliers, and he's stopping by with us in the fast lane. Jeremy, what do you do when, in terms of your job, as far as being able to be a resource when you've got established programs and coaches? Baseball is one that comes to mind, but I mean, there are enough spring sports programs that are successful but have younger coaches and newer coaches to their program. Do you make yourself more available for them than you do for established coaches who have an idea of what they want?
When you look at our spring staff across the board, you got a guy like Ryan Gillen, who's one of 3 coaches in the history of this school. It's just a pretty awesome thing. All the way back to Kelly Russell, who's still on the bench with Coach G. And then you got Jim Thacker and Ryan Gillen. So you got 3 coaches in the history of the school. And then you flip the coin. Gary Harris has been here for quite a while on our softball side. But then even on the soccer side, Matt Newton and Scott Zering have made continued to make JF soccer, boys and girls soccer, a powerhouse within this district and a powerhouse within Class 4. So while they were both undefeated during the regular season, they went against some teams that were playing really well at the time. Our girls lost to Salem in a heartbreaker after being undefeated, and then our boys lost to the eventual state champ 2-1 in overtime. And Blacksburg, I think, won by 3 or 4 goals in the state championship game. So again, to know that we're that close. And boys lacrosse, we got healthy finally towards the end of the season. We're playing some great lacrosse, and Coach Don Preston has done a great job with that program and getting going from the VHSL into the VHSL ranks during our time together here. He was hired initially when they were a club team, but now we've spent several years as VHSL. And Sammy Griffin has taken our girls team and continued working with that group, because the spring here, it never stops. Andre Vial, brand new coach for us in the track world. It's his first year in our indoor team, but indoor and outdoor boys won the Seminole District. So you got some new folks who have never done it before, but you got some folks who've been here quite a while that know the lay of the land, whether it be at JF or just the lay of the land in the Seminole District in the region landscape.
We've seen it in football because we do Jefferson Forest Cavalier football on 100.9 Lynchburg and 95.3 FM in Bedford. And we saw it there where they lost in the semifinals, but you could argue they were the second best team. They gave Varina a lot closer of a game than Varina got in the state championship game. And you mentioned a couple of other sports in there in terms of soccer as well as baseball, losing in the semifinals, but really making it more competitive for the opponent than they might have gotten in the championship, particularly in soccer and in football. Do people lose sight of that? They lose in semis, but there's a successful season anyway?
For sure. I mean, we don't look at, of course, you want to win the big one. Everyone wants to win the big one. Coach Gillen had said, what was a special moment for our kids is hosting that state quarterfinal game. And most teams don't get to win. If you win your final game at home, it's usually senior night, right? But this one was a state quarterfinal game. To have those guys come off on a walk-off win against a program who's won a lot of games out of Loudoun County, and to have that win at home to propel us to the spring jubilee, that was something else. Fun fact, you mentioned football. Our head boys tennis coach David Gallier is an assistant on the football team, and our boys tennis team this year won the district for the first time, I believe, in my tenure for sure. We were undefeated. I think we lost one match to Patrick Henry out of Roanoke. We're undefeated in the district. So boys tennis in the spring had an amazing year as well. So I want to make sure I get all those folks covered.
Well, we should, and I get that. How hard is it, though, to have as many successful programs as Jefferson Forest has without losing the desire for compromised excellence? Because football has built themselves up, and you want to make sure that you have a bunch of successful programs across the board. How do you, as an athletic director, work with the coaches, with the assistants, the managers, and the folks around there, as well as the parents who want to be involved, to make sure that everybody's getting the resources and attention they need?
JF is a pressure cooker, and I mean that all in a good sense, because there is a lot of success each and every season. Like, we're not talking about just athletics. We're talking about our theater was the state champ, and they've been in the running for it every year that I've been here. So just today we were awarded the National Guard Cup for academics for the second year in a row, and I think 3 out of the last 4. So we're the top school in Class 4 in activities. That's talking, theater, yearbook, debate, speech. When you add all those things together, we're the top school in Class 4, and we were actually again in the top 10 in athletics. With schools like Blacksburg and Charlottesville and Atlee, who you see in the running for pretty much everything year in, year out in each season. And we're right there in the mix. So we're right where we want to be. I was talking with Dr. Martin today. We sure would love to hopefully get up into that top 3, maybe even win a National Guard Cup in athletics, because that means everything is really pulling its weight and moving the needle forward. Of course, Coach Cruz and his staff gets that off on the right foot in football season by going all the way to making a state run. It's been awesome to see what they're doing. But we have success here, and I carry that chip proudly because, with it being a pressure cooker, there's that element of, there's an expectation for success, but there's also the willingness to do what's necessary to have it. There are a lot of people are involved in making this place as awesome as it is, because without the extra hands, like, it's certainly not a one-man show, and it's not a one-person show. It is a team. I have an amazing team of event workers who I could not do this without. I got an amazing group of coaches who all are willing to work together, because here's the thing. Forest, everyone knows, is growing by leaps and bounds, but we're landlocked. We're not able to spread our wings, so to speak, because, we're on all 4 sides. There's something built. So there's not a lot of room for expansion from the facilities that we have. So our teams have grown, but our ability to, have a plenty of space to do all the things we want to do when we want to do them is our biggest challenge. So that part, that's what kind of where I come in, and where the coaches come in, and the willingness to say, hey, I'll go early, you go late, or hey, this works during this time for us. And it's about communication, about people willing to pull for each other, because when everyone pulls the same direction, it's a pretty awesome thing.
I'll ask that we can get greater depth into football as that season starts to approach, and we're not too far off of it. I'm sure you're feeling it like we are. We're sitting there. I'm like, we're only 2.5 months
July 27th is coming soon. That's the first day of football. So we're talking almost a month, a little over a month.
We're by the end of the week, it'll basically be a month away, which is crazy to believe. But you mentioned for football, and we'll wrap it up for this time with Jeremy Sink, the Jefferson Forest Athletic Director, on this particular point. Speak about JT Cruz. How invaluable is it for Jefferson Forest Athletics to have somebody where, look, he needs the resources. They've gotten resources. They've been able to develop a pipeline from the lower levels on their way up, but also his willingness to work around other programs as opposed to just hogging all the time and the attention, so that JF football can succeed. They have succeeded, but allowing other programs to do that as well.
I tell you what, when you talk JT and you talk a lot of our coaches, that they're so unselfish with their time. There's nothing for me to walk next door, during lunch, and to see coaches from 3 or 4 different sports all standing in the same coach's office talking about the game last night, or whether it be a high school game, a college game, or whatever, and just talking ball, right? And that's one of those things as an AD, you kind of miss every once in a while, where you were having those conversations during lunch with different coaches. But JT is one of those guys that, one, he understands to surround himself with people, great people, and I think he's done that. And a lot of those guys I've either coached with myself, or coached against, or worked with, or taught with. And on top of that, the buy-in from being able to work within the community. You see they're kind of the ones starting out who kind of led the charge in community service, and a lot of the other teams doing things within the community. It's one of the things I talked about in my pillars when I came here, is that we were going to be involved in and around Bedford County and in Forest by getting our athletes out there in front of the public and getting them out there in the schools. Our kids bounce in and out of different areas in and around Forest and help out where they're needed. Like every season you see it. Nearly all of our sports and activities are involved in some type of community service. And when you give back to the community, they're going to show up for you. And you come out on Friday night, it's it's an experience like no other. And JT leans into that. And when I sat down, when I first got the job, I said, this is where I'm kind of coming from. I'm a community driven guy. And JT and I met about that, and he's taken that and ran with it. And we've got other coaches who do it in the same fashion, who are rocking and rolling come their season about being involved in the Forest community and beyond.
Your pillars. That is a topic we have to get to next time. Jeremy Sink, Athletic Director for Jefferson Forest High School, with us here in the Fast Lane. Jeremy, a pleasure to be speaking with you. We look forward to more of these, including maybe sprinkling some of them in during Jefferson Forest Cavalier football game broadcast this upcoming season.
All right, Ed, appreciate you having me, man.
Our pleasure. Jeremy Sink with us here in the Fast Lane. We will pivot from that to the college side of things. The Liberty Flames, John Manson from AseerofRed.com, will join us next in the Fast Lane. Football recruiting heater, including one of the highest rated commitments in program history. We'll discuss that when we return here in the Fast Lane.
Don't miss the Make This the Summer sales event going on now at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bedford, with rebates and discounts saving you up to $7,000 on new Ram 1500s, or save up to $5,500 on new Jeep Grand Cherokees. Shop over 175 pre-owned vehicles priced to sell fast, many with limited warranties. Our Make This the Summer sales event is on at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 1750 Independence Boulevard in Bedford. MagicCityBedford.com. See dealer for details. And 6/30/26.
The clock is ticking. Time is running out for Virginia citizens to purchase modern sporting rifles and magazines from Big Boys Guns. Beat the July 1st deadline. Right now, the selection is robust at Big Boys Guns. ARs, AKs, and the most popular handguns will soon be banned from sale in the state of Virginia. Don't wait. Visit Big Boys Guns before the inventory is gone and not allowed to return. Shop 24/7 at BigBoysGuns.com and in store on Route 460 in Blue Ridge.
Holes for Heroes is back at the 29th Annual Boonesboro Fire and Rescue Benefit Golf Tournament. Your support goes beyond teeing off Monday, July 20th at the Boonesboro Country Club. It's also sponsoring a hole or lunch, because however you support the event, you're actually helping with key services like continuing education and training, building maintenance, plus gear and equipment, including the new fire truck that's currently being built. Start your support now at BoonesboroFireRescue.org. That's BoonesboroFireRescue.org.
Almost half the vehicles on the road have visible body damage. Those cars look ugly, embarrassing, and even unprofessional. If that's your car, why live with it? Get Mako. At Mako of Lynchburg, they'll work with your insurance company or coordinate out of pocket, because living with damage to your car is annoying every day. Don't live with the uh-oh. Get Mako. Mako of Lynchburg on Kemper Street.
Starting a landscaping business, growing your fleet, Miller Built Outdoor Equipment is focused on commercial turf professionals across Central Virginia. We help you choose the right Toro commercial mower, professional handheld equipment, and the right support plan, so your operation grows the right way. Commercial turf is your business. Supporting it is ours. Miller Built Outdoor Equipment on 12th Street in Lynchburg.
Are you sick of running your dryer longer just to dry your clothes? It might not be a dying appliance. It might be a clogged up dryer vent. Call Black Goose Chimney Service to find out. Their certified ventilation specialists don't just diagnose chimneys. They also clean dryer vents through the entire ventilation system. Get peace of mind as you're protected from lint clogging your dryer vents, one of the most common causes of house fires. Call Black Goose Chimney Service today and visit blackgoose.net to schedule your dryer vent cleaning.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
What's the plan? 3-star wide receiver Jordan Christie committing to the Liberty Flames, and John Manson from AseerofRed.com generous enough to join us here in the Fast Lane. John, the reason we start off our chat with you today, first of all, we're glad to be speaking with you. Second of all, I hope you and Morgan and your lovely kids had a wonderful trip out to the beach. I guess we'll start with that. Were you able to exhale a little bit, or did you have one eye on recruiting developments? Because the Flames have been on a heater in football, and they've also added some in softball and baseball as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's nonstop recruiting news all the time. But no, we had a really good good time, a few days to be able to have a little bit of a rest and reset and ready to get back at it. But yeah, we had Liberty football had 4 commitments last week while I was gone, and Liberty baseball has also started off pretty hot in the transfer portal market. So had a good trip, but hit the ground running once we got back going this week.
Liberty football. That's where we'll start with John Manson from ASeaRed.com. Jordan Christie, 3-star wide receiver, one of the highest rated commitments in program history, comes into Liberty. Am I off base in believing that this coaching staff may have a vision for him, not just to be a wide receiver, but more of an all-purpose offensive weapon, considering how often they like to run the football? And you would presume that if you bring in a guy that's a wide receiver, you want to get him the ball in space, which may include on things like end around or even motioning into the backfield.
Yeah, we're kind of thinking the same lines. I think Christie's a guy that, could be a slot receiver / hybrid running back, like the Flames have used under Coach Chadwell these past 3 seasons. Maybe like an Aaron Bedgood type role or something similar to that. So again, Christie, very highly rated a recruit, had right around 30 total offers, and a dozen or more of those at the Power 4 level, and took a couple of official visits, including at Liberty this past month, and ended up deciding to commit to the Flames. But yeah, he's someone that I would expect to slide into that slot / A-back, perimeter type running back that the Flames utilize, and looking to get a lot of touches for him, and someone with his explosiveness and speed out on the perimeter. And second highest recruit in school history currently, the way it stands. And the highest rated recruit is Jalen Coleman, who will be sharing that offensive space, offensive field, whether it's the backfield or in the slot, as a running back, a rising sophomore who will probably be one of the featured players on this offense this coming fall. But he and Christie, Liberty's hopeful that they'll have both of them to, anytime you have speedsters on the field, it's a good thing, and gives defensive coordinators long nights and some sleepless nights preparing for that offense.
You mentioned all those elements. Last year's team had a viable running game with Evan Dickens, the most notable player, but it didn't quite have everything in the passing game. Some of that you could argue is quarterback play. Some of that is schematics and offensive line play. You've had a chance to digest now what we saw from spring practice and the spring, I'll call it showcase because it wasn't really a game. John, are you now at a point now entering the season where you see there being a path where this offense could be more multi-dimensional than it was last year?
Yeah, I mean, you look back to last season, obviously Liberty's 4-8 and the worst season record-wise in 2 decades that we've seen out of Liberty football. And you kind of peel back the onion a little bit more. You mentioned the quarterback play and the quarterback struggles. And it wasn't just Ethan Vasco, but he was the starter for the majority of the season and shoulders the bulk of that blame. But Liberty had its fewest passing touchdowns as a team for over 20 years. Also had more interceptions thrown than touchdowns passed for. So those are certainly not numbers that are a recipe for success, and something that Coach Chadwell obviously has to address, and something I think he hopes that he has addressed. Deshaun Purdy is the guy we talked about previously, who in my personal opinion, I think he's the leader in the clubhouse to be the starter at quarterback, but he still has to earn that job this summer and this fall as we get into training camp, and even once the season starts. And he has to protect the ball. He's a career 50% passer, and those numbers have to improve. I think some of that is probably due to systems he was in previously, first at Charlotte and then at Wake Forest last year. But he has to improve those numbers. He does have a lively arm. He can make the passes downfield. That's something Liberty lacked a lot last year. But hopefully Purdy can be a lot more consistent in the short to mid-range game than the Flames have experienced really last year, but even the last 2 seasons. And that's the number one thing. If you can have that downfield passing threat, then you couple that with several running backs that Liberty has brought in, including Jalen Coleman, like I mentioned, and you would think this would be a potent Liberty offensive system, which is something Coach Chadwell is known for. That's why he's had so much success he's had previously at Coastal Carolina, obviously, and then here at Liberty at the beginning of his stint there. So you would expect the Flames to get back to that, but it all comes down to that quarterback play.
John Manson with us here in the fast lane. John, you mentioned Deshaun Purdy. I'm with you. I kind of get the sense that he's the leader right now entering whenever they get ready to enter into training camp coming up in about a month now. I hope I'm not giving you diphtheria bringing that date up. Excitement and also stress levels rising a little bit as well for that, John. But you put that into the context, and you look at the quarterback room in prior years. People bag on Ethan Vasco, but Caden Salter, other quarterbacks, going back to Grayson McCall, they're asked to do a lot, which means they're subjected to more hits. How imperative is it, and does the coaching staff know how imperative it is to have multiple options at quarterback, knowing that, while you want to have your number one guy around, there's a decent chance he might take some nicks and bruises during the year?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we obviously saw that last year with Vasco, and Liberty also brought in Jalen Henderson, transfer from West Virginia, a guy that Liberty was high on a year ago when they ended up getting Vasco from Coastal Carolina, but Henderson was coming out of Texas A&M at that point in time, and like I said, landed at West Virginia. He's more of a running threat quarterback than he is a true passer, but he's certainly someone that could come in, maybe even have packages for him in certain situations, goal line packages, red zone packages, but also he's a veteran. Guys played a lot of college football, a lot of different levels, Texas A&M, West Virginia most notably. And, like I said, it's got a lot of playing time under his belt at the FBS level. And obviously Vasco, I mean, he started multiple seasons, Coastal Carolina and Liberty the last couple of years. And, those are three quarterbacks there that have significant playing experience. And that's something a year ago this time, Liberty didn't have the fortunes of that. It was only Vasco who had seen time at Coastal Carolina, then a lot of unknown behind him. So certainly a much more veteran and experienced quarterback room. And you would think that out of those three guys that, if you're a Liberty fan and a Liberty coach, that hopefully one of those guys can, whether it's Purdy or one of the others, can claim hold to that starting job early and not relinquish it. And then also, to your point, stay healthy.
John Manson with us here in the fast lane. John, touching on a couple of others for Liberty and other sports, that is. First of all, for softball, they lose KK Madry to Arizona. Is that something that overshadows the fact they've actually been successful in the transfer portal, or is that something that you believe is the nature of the beast and they kind of have an idea of that going forward, which is how they've been able to replenish with what has otherwise been a group of really strong additions?
Yeah, KK is really an interesting case. She came in with a lot of hype and had a strong freshman season, and was Liberty's second, maybe third pitcher that was utilized in the circle. And then obviously you go back a year and a half ago now or whatnot, and she recorded the final out of the win over Texas A&M and the final game to win that regional and get to the super regional. First time Liberty had ever done that. She was the one that came into the circle and for Elena Escobar, and a lot of the images circulating from that game is of her recording that final out. So that's something that will stick with Liberty and go down in the Liberty record books for a long time. And it was expected she would be kind of the ace of the staff this past spring, but that didn't quite happen. She had some early season struggles and was inconsistent, and Coach Dot Richardson would go to her periodically throughout the season as it got later, and again inconsistent. And she decided to go into the portal, which isn't shocking, but I think under Coach Richardson, you would expect the Flames, Lady Flames softball team to bounce back this year as they're coming off their first year not winning Conference USA in softball in their 3 years in the league, and obviously coming off that super regional appearance a couple of years ago. So you would expect them to get right back in the mix of things. And I mean, they were in the mix of things this past season, as we talked about previously, making it all the way to the conference championship game before losing to Jack State. But you wouldn't expect anything else from Coach Richardson, and to have Liberty right back in the mix of things in Conference USA again this coming season.
And I meant Kalen Yoder, not KK Madry, the transfer to Arizona. I got my names mixed up. I think get my usher
Yeah,
on
you're
for a
right.
moment in the fast lane with the two of them. But it was Kalen Yoder, the pitcher, who had a good year last year, and then this year was kind of a downer. We'll wrap it up on this, John. How much of it, and we got about 30 seconds, how much of it is also the fact that sometimes you just need a change of scenery as well?
Oh yeah, I mean you see that whether it's coaches or players all the time. Sometimes you just need some fresh space and a breath of fresh air to kind of get out of the cobwebs sometimes in your head, especially from a pitcher's perspective too, right? Like so much of that is mental, like a kicker, similar in football is, and a lot of it's just mental space. And if you can have a change of scenery and a fresh start and some new voices in your head, sometimes that can change things up. So hopefully Yoder is able to have some success. She's going to Arizona, and you wish her nothing but the best. But we'll see what Liberty does. They need to add at least one or two pitchers here in the portal, and we'll continue to keep tabs on that at ASeaRed.com.
We will monitor all of that. John Manson with us in the fast lane, and now Dr. Dot Richardson when she joins. It'll be a Thursday edition of Faith Fridays, but she's going to join us Thursday for a Faith Fridays edition of the fast lane. Just keep up with that. She'll give me a hard time about getting KK Madry and Kalen Yoder mixed up, so I'll have to atone for that, John. Hopefully we don't have to atone for anything. We appreciate your time today.
Sounds good. That'll be a must listen on Thursday. Talk to you.
Indeed. Look forward to it. Now, back
Thanks
tomorrow.
for listening to The Fast Lane on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, W227 BG Timberlake, and 1320 AM, WV.